All right, are we all sitting down? We're all ready to roll. Okay, everyone's having a good day so far? Okay, good. I'm glad. All right, well, thank you and welcome to this edition of the CWB Association Podcast Forum. This is something that we plan to do every year across the country, and this is our new pilot that we're going to see how this rolls with this group today, where you get to interact with your local industry leaders and myself here at CWB and try to relate to what's happening in your local community. Each panelist on the floor here has a different experience and a different pathway to success here in the GTA. And we want to get them to talk about their story, and we're going to go over some questions. And we want to make sure that we engage you, the audience, into seeing what we could do as a group, as a community, to help reinforce your futures and any questions you have of us of maybe tips and tricks of how to superpower your future going forward. This panel is sponsored by the Ironworkers here at 721, Lincoln, and CWS with the prizes, and of course, the CWB Association. So let's start with giving all our sponsors a quick round of applause. So my name is Max Saron, and I'm the Executive Director of the CWB membership. One of my jobs across Canada is to make sure that communities have what they need to support the local workforce. So that includes students, welders, fabricators, engineers, inspectors, really anyone that touches, moves, or works with steel. What I have to do is make sure that every community has the pieces they need to succeed, whether it's helping them connect with work, helping them connect with schools, training opportunities, or getting the next level of education that they need to either get into the career they want or move up into the next career. Because as we know, welding is a huge world. It's not just about getting in as a welder. I see lots of young students here, and that's awesome. But you're just scratching the surface. And usually you find out within that first month of school that you got into something a hell of a lot bigger than you thought you were getting into. This is a wild career that can go so many different ways. And this panel here actually is a really great example of how many different ways you can move forward in your career. So I'm going to start here real quick with some introductions. And we're going to start here with Chris. So this is Chris Rebello. He's a welding instructor here for Ironworkers Local 721. Chris, can you tell us about your story and how you got to where you are?
I got into the trades because I wanted to actually do something with my hands. I was a visual learner. I was a tactile learner. It made it a lot easier for me. It was very rewarding. You know, I didn't know if I was going to stick with it. And then now, all of a sudden, 21 years, I'm here. I was lucky to be given a lot of opportunities, and I was always able to increase my skills. So that gave me a lot of self-worth. Now I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can give back. Now I am an educator at Ironworkers Local 721. As a welding instructor, also, I volunteer with the CWB Association Toronto chapter. I'm the current chair, and the idea is to give back information and hopefully spark young minds into joining any of the trades, any of the welding industries, and understand there's vertical growth in it.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Up next, we have Ryan Walters here, who's a welding engineering specialist. Ryan, tell us about your career and what you do.
Yeah, so I got into welding in high school. Obviously, I ended up getting interested in welding technology, welding engineering. I went to Northern College. After Northern College, I decided to go with kind of a Boilermaker company with Horton CBI, and then pursued kind of a long career, basically in the industrial construction industry. An extremely rewarding career. People I met all over the place. The various facets of procedure development, NDE, qualification and procedure design. The engineering aspect I felt was just phenomenal. Again, I got a chance to kind of travel the world. Went to South Africa. I went to Australia. It's kind of amazing. You kind of start out with welding. You're like, how am I flying first class to Australia? Right? How am I standing on top of this LNG tank? How am I how is this even possible? Right? The biggest jet you ever see, and you're flying into Amsterdam. I mean, there's some of these things that, and you kind of touched on in the beginning, it's sort of incredible how far you can go. It really is. Again, most of my career has been sort of spent completely in the, industrial construction side of things. Again, through engineering, procurement, NDE, all that kind of business. But it's been phenomenal. And I hope we can, open some minds today about what the futures can look like, what you can get into, and again, how rewarding it really can be, again, to shed a light on it. So
awesome. Thank you, Ryan. And on my right here, I got Victor Andrusani, who I've known for a long time now, even before working at CWB. When I was a volunteer, I'd run into this guy all the time. He has an extensive career with the CWB, over 25 years. He's the manager for CWB Consulting and also a weld engineer. So, Victor, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's a bit of a long story, and I apologize. I started by going to university, and I went to go and study civil engineering. Believe me, welding was the furthest thing on my mind. But after I graduated from university, we were in a recession, so no one was hiring. I ended up taking a job in quality control. From there, I ended up working at a welding shop. And one day, one of the CSR from the CWB came in, and he goes, "You know what? The association is having a meeting." Back then, they called it the Society, Canadian Welding Society.
Mhm.
And he goes, "Here's a ticket. They're going to be talking about duplex alloys." And I said, "Well, that's pretty cool. I'll show up." And I showed up there, and I met two individuals. This individual introduced me to two other individuals. Those two individuals were Doug Luciani and Craig Martin. And then, lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, there was a posting from the CWB, and they were looking for a CSR at that time, and they were looking for someone who was an engineer. And one of my friends saw the posting, and he told me about it, right? And I go, what they were asking for, it was really odd what they were looking for at that time. But he goes, "Yeah, you meet all those requirements, right?" And so I applied, went in for the interview, and who was there interviewing me? Doug Luciani and Craig Martin, right? It's a very small world. They hired me back in 99 as a CSR, and then I moved into doing procedures review and also working for the electrodes department. When I was working for the electrodes department, just like Ryan, I was traveling in the world. I was going to Europe. I was going to US, California a lot. And then from there, I decided to leave the CWB. And so in 2006, I went to go and work for Air Liquide. They had a small division called Omni Weld. And the reason why I left was because I wanted to get involved in consulting. That was more my passion, right? So what I was doing was routine welding engineering. So I always kept in contact with CWB because all my clients were certified with CWB. So I'm in constant contact with them. And then December, around maybe it was the first week of December in 2014, we get called in, all of us that were on that team, into a meeting in Burlington. And we're sitting across from the VP, and VP goes, "Yes, we just sold you to the CWB." And I kind of looked, and because she had a very strong accent, so did I hear what I just heard? And my manager was right beside me, and he starts talking. I go, "Yeah, I just did hear what I just heard." And then that afternoon, the president came, and who was it again? Doug Luciani. Right? So here we go again, and I saw him, and lo and behold, my manager, Andy, at that time, retired, and I've taken on the position as manager of the team now. And that's my story.
That's fantastic. There's a couple key components within the three stories here, and in my life too, is the networking. This is something that is so incredibly important in this world. It's a big world, but it's a small world for welders. We've all traveled, we've all done work, we've all been all over the place. We've you do the things that people dream of doing. I always say that we're like the NHL of the trades, because we make the money, we get to travel, and we get to dress nice. So it's the things that we get to do in this trade. But the networking that happens at events like this should become a part of your everyday life in your trade for the rest of your lives. When you see opportunities for a meet and greet, for a welding group, not even CWB, whatever, go to them. You'll meet people. Sometimes you end up making friends and they end up being your boss, or vice versa. You never know, right? You want to take advantage of that. Now, as we dial this into the Toronto area, the GTA, or the 6th, as it's called around here, I wanted to talk about a couple of the stats, okay? Because there's some really interesting things about Ontario. This is stuff that we at the CWB actually do. Every year we do surveys with all our membership, and we do surveys with the government to see where the work is, what the wages are, Because when we look at how we distribute our funding across Canada to help the industry, we got to help the hot spots and the low spots, right? You want to kind of support the ones that are booming and also help the places that are hurting. Now, we have stats on everything. A couple interesting things about Ontario. Since COVID, Ontario's had an increasing GDP in the welding industry every year since 2019. Specifically, a 3% increase in the mining, quarry, and gas extraction. So if you're looking at mining, oil and gas, extraction, or nuclear, those are the biggest booms for this province for the last 4 years. That's trending up, and it looks to be trending up lots. And we're going to talk to, we had a little conversation before, we're going to talk a little bit about that trend. Another thing interesting about here is that today, the job bank, there's over 200 welding jobs in the GTA area right now posted. So 200 jobs right now that you could go out and apply for. And 74 of those jobs are looking for less than 1 year experience. So they're looking for newbies. They just want people. This is something we hear across Canada. The shortage of employees that we have for the welding world is tough. A lot of people come into welding thinking they're going to love it. And what do we learn? It's actually pretty hard. And you require a certain skill set. And you have to have a certain amount of patience and resiliency to be in this trade. So it is an ebb and flow. And for many of the people that get started in the industry, less than 1/3 of the people that enter apprenticeship finish. And if I could say anything to the people in this group is finish. Because getting that red seal or getting those certs or getting to that top level secures your career. The first few years are hard. They were hard on all of us. But once you get your foot in that tracksuit and you're moving, then it's forever. That train doesn't stop. It's just those first few years that are iffy. But once you got those experience years under your belt, it's nonstop. Specifically here in the GTA, the average cost of living for a single person by themselves is a minimum $3,500 a month. So how many jobs in the world, just we're talking society, are going to make you $3,500 a month right off the bat? Not very many. The welding industry does, right? We're going to talk about that. And for a family of 4, it's over $8,000 a month. So if you're looking to have a family in the GTA, you're going to have at least 1 or 2 incomes that make a minimum of $8,000 a month. That's net after taxes. So you got to be into the right trade or the right line of business. Everyone here in this room is on the right track. But for the people that are listening to the podcast or watching this on TV or on YouTube, you got to know that you got to look around you, and these trades are going to be able to support you and your family. That's important when you're looking for work, right? You're going to have to get into something that you know you can stay in. A couple interesting things. The average starting salary for Toronto is a little bit lower than the national average. We're hopefully going to work on that as a province here in Ontario, but it's about $25.40 an hour for a starting level 1 welder in Ontario. Other provinces are up and down, depending. You guys can always find this information on our website, but that kind of lays the groundwork. Toronto is expensive, right? We know that the GTA is expensive. Buying a house is getting ridiculous. Trying to get ahead is hard. How can the trades support us in that dream? All right. So we're going to get started with questions now. So we're going to start with Chris. This question's for you. And then everyone's going to get a shot at it after. How do you see the demand for skilled trades workers evolving in the next 5 to 10 years here in the GTA? What are some of the impacts of the big projects that might be coming up?
All the big projects start off small, like everything else, right? Max is talking about housing and everyone moving into the city or new people coming in, right? That's how we build our system. So we start looking at the residential housing, then we start looking at the infrastructure within it, right? Condos, high rises. Now we have to increase our services, increasing our sewers, increasing our hydro, everything that's coming in to feed these people, right? Now we got to talk about more infrastructure projects, subways, highways, tunnels, all these things to help move people around. And you can already start seeing that with a lot of the work that's going on in transit, right? Light rail, subways, right? Then you're talking about highways to move people around. Now, what's going to drive on those highways? There's a big shift to the electric market. So now we're talking about retooling car plants, right? We have a lot of new companies who are trying to build products in Canada, right? So not only do you need someone to engineer it, design it, build the vehicle, now you need someone to actually build the building, maintain it, install, and going on forward. That's not including stuff like what has to feed these vehicles, right? Now we're talking about the power for these vehicles. Now you're talking about solar, wind, hydroelectric, nuclear, which sets Ontario apart from a lot of people. Now we're already putting all this money into upgrading our infrastructure with our nuclear. Also, we're talking about growing our nuclear with adding more reactors, like at the Bruce. Now we're actually talking about making small nuclear reactors, SMRs. So you can see how that feeds everybody. But these are projects that are not one-day things. Some of these are 5, 10, 50-year projects, and the upkeep and the maintenance, right? So that's where I see things going. And it's a huge demand, and it's just getting started.
Ryan, like we were talking earlier before the panel started about some of the big projects that might be coming up. And you work a lot around nuclear energy, LNG, gas, energy production vehicles. What do you see in your future?
I mean, to me, it's a tremendous boom for the economy. It's a tremendous, boom for all the citizens. I mean, basically, there's just a rise in everyone's general sort of, income and opportunity, right? So to me, it's a phenomenal place to be, right now, for the next, say 15 years, even beyond that. Again, we touched on nuclear a little bit before, but, the investments are going to be staggering again for a long period of time. The trades, for a very, very long period of time, probably 40, 50 years, people have been sort of traveling west to find the opportunities for new work, greenfield work, opportunities to kind of grow and get your hours. You're going to have that right here in Ontario. So it's a great place where you're going to have opportunities to grow into supervision, grow your skills, your capabilities. I think, it's just, it's a really, really great place to be. I mean, I understand it's expensive. I understand that sort of stuff's going on, but you start getting into some of these opportunities where you get into the 40, the 50, the 60-hour weeks and the double times and things like that, and the benefits. Like it does become, again, from a skilled trade perspective, where you can go and what those opportunities look like. It's a great career. And again, going back to the sort of the central question here, what will it do for the economy and the local sort of environment here in the GTA? I mean, it's just, it's a very exciting time. It really is. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm going to jump in quick here because last year I was in Ottawa for a chapter meeting. We have chapters across Canada, and I was at visiting the chapter meeting in Ottawa, and they had the Bruce Power's top TIG welder, Eric Dickerson. If he ever does a presentation or look him up, he's an amazing person. He's the highest paid welder in Canada right now. He works for Bruce Power. He's a TIG specialist, and since he works for a public company, his wage is actually listed online. So you can use like Google and see what he makes. But he made $270,000 last year as a TIG welder. All right. And so this guy is loving life. He's in his mid to late 30s, but he got in young as a TIG welder with the energy companies and stayed there. And it might have been $24 an hour. So that's what, there's that thing where you look at that bottom number and you think, I don't know if I can live off 25 or 27 or even 30 when you're first starting out. Like we said, it's just that starting out period.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other sort of piece that's kind of touched on earlier. I mean, all of our site management, our VPs, they're guys from the trades, right? So, I mean, some of the other companies that I worked for in the past as well, I mean, they've risen into, again, these are very large corporations and, major multinational companies that they started in the trades. It's sort of one of the only industries where, you don't need a degree or an MBA or whatever, an advanced degree of some degree to get sort of to that top level. Again, there's an option and there's a pathway that you can get there if you're hungry enough, you desire enough to sort of achieve that, right? So, again, going back to your point, I mean, there is the potential there to do extremely well.
And Victor, you see everything come across your desk now, right? You're at CWB. Companies got to apply. Companies are coming in. You see what comes in. You also see the companies that are going out. So what's the trend that you see for the GTA?
Well, you just have to go outside and you can see
the cranes.
There's 4 cranes. As soon as I came in, I went to Chris. When I came in, I go, "What's going on?" Right, type of thing. The other thing, I was in the downtown core. I think it was about three or 4 months ago. I don't know if you guys remember. We had a couple of days of really hard rainstorm, and there was flooding, and I saw it. I was in it, and I was shocked when I saw it. So when it comes to infrastructure, there's still a lot of the old infrastructure that needs to change here in Toronto. One of the other things that we were, you mentioned, Chris, was the EVs. right? And what I was talking to someone who used to work for Ontario Hydro, and he told me, because not only do we have to put more nuclear power plants in order to power these EVs, but we also need to improve the actual transmission lines, because a lot of the transmission lines, the way they were designed was for peak time, which is in the summertime when all the air conditioners are going off, right? So the way it works is at nighttime, when the air conditioners are being used less, the lines have a chance to cool down, right? But if everyone's plugging their EVs at nighttime, they're not going to have a chance to cool down. So there could be a lot of blackouts if we don't improve our transmission lines as well, too.
You guys have peak times? Well, I'm from Saskatchewan. I think we use most of our energy in the winter trying to stay alive. I don't think we worry too much about the air conditioning in the summer, but it's absolutely true. The infrastructure, and this is always a great exercise with your friends or even people that don't understand the welding industry, is literally stand anywhere at any given time and look around you. There's welding. There's no place on earth where you can really just stand around and be like, there's no welding involved. Like there's towers that got our signal to our phones, the buildings we're in, the water pipes, the plumbing, everything around us has some connection to the welding industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to add what you were saying, I know you're from Regina, Saskatchewan, right? So you've never felt humidity before.
Have you seen how frizzy my hair is? Trust me, I get humidity, all right? Okay. All right, next question. Let's start with you, Ryan. What are some of the strategies workers can use to ensure that their skills stay relevant, especially with automation and technology as they impact the skilled trades?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a couple of different ways you can go with that question, right? I mean, you turn on the TV and you see AI and the involvement, kind of what it's doing in industries in many different facets, right? And you see advances every year from, welding machine companies, electrode suppliers, of all these new fancy things that are sort of coming out. I think, we talk about a strategy in terms of sustainability and long-term growth and, potential and what have you. I think, if you're coming out, if you're welding, say, downtown and you're welding structural steel and sort of the commercial industry, you want to expand your skills. You want to grow. You want to, potentially look at maybe, joining, maybe the nuclear industry or oil and gas, or maybe getting into wind turbines or work in a shop, work in different processes, different materials, different applications. I generally think that the best sort of response to all of that in terms of developing yourself in a strategy is to be the most versatile, really to have the most and greatest set of capabilities, right? So, in my mind, when you talk about emerging technology, there's also the existing technology that we have, right? So there's mechanized welding, robotic welding. You get into applications with Gulcos, or you get into sub-arc from two different directions, or simultaneous sub-arc. You get into these things where you're sort of leveraging your skill as a welder, but actually controlling and operating a machine or an equipment, right? So these are the types of things that if you start stacking these things up, saying, okay, I've mastered this. I've now worked on aluminum. I've worked on copper brass. I've worked on these sort of different applications. The other part too, I think that's really important, again, to continue to sort of stack, your resume and qualifications, is to travel around a little bit, right? So if you're not really getting sort of these exposures or these opportunities while you're young, maybe with this company or that company, you might consider, going west, or you might consider going to the east, or you might consider, and these are sometimes sort of tough things to do and tough challenges, right? And depending on where you are in life and the situation you might be in. But these are the types of things about, as I talked about earlier, where, the guy that sort of came out of trade school that became the CEO, and all of those skills in between and all those steps that he went through. So I think there's things like that. So if you're hungry and aggressive towards, developing yourself, you might, find yourself in a situation shortly thereafter where you're talking about maybe going into supervision. You might be asked about going on a safety committee. You might be all these sort of types of things that sort of develop your skills and develop your capability, right? So to me, those are the things that, again, and you touched on it earlier, like if you're approached by your company about a new opportunity or a training school, or come to an event like this, or going to CanWeld, go, right? Like, develop yourself. You might see something, you might be surprised, you might be, completely turned on to a completely new thing like NDE, and you want to become a UT tech all of a sudden, right? Like this is such a vast industry. I've been at it for a while now, and some of the folks that I've come across, they started as fitters, now they're schedulers, now they're, again, site superintendents, now they're in senior positions where they're running like complete regions. And so to me, like, it's all there, it's all possible. And these are all the types of things that you kind of have to step through and sort of, stepping stones, so to speak. But, I think that's the stuff in terms of like a strategy of how I would sustain a long-term career as well as grow. And then also look at, it might be a little bit, difficult, learning a new skill or learning how to control the machine, but you've got those skills of what you're looking for, what the puddle looks like, how the, contact tip to work distance, all that type of stuff, work angle, travel angle, all that stuff still matters. And so you're able to easily adapt your skills into that very quickly. So a bit long-winded, but that's totally like, to me, like, that's the stuff that you step through in your journey that gets you where you know what I mean? Where you need to go.
Well, and if you don't take control of your own career to upskill yourself, you fall behind.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And things move quick. Move quick. And it's always that idea. Like, if I offer anybody here a free training, who puts their hand up? Every hand should go up, right? If you have an opportunity to learn, you take it, or else you get left behind. Like Victor, for you've seen lots of trends come and go now through your, time. Now that with the automation and the technology that's really starting to explode now, and like even us at CWB trying to find our space in there, how do you see it for the young next generation coming up?
Well, the first thing I would like to say is you're probably going to hear something little different from myself, and that is, even though automation is coming, never forget how to do things manually. Okay, that's going to be very important, and I'll explain why. First of all, in order to program a robot or anything to do automated, it's taking over from what person is doing manually, right? So, basically, one of the things that I've always been taught is it's easier to teach a welder the robotic side than it is a robotic specialist the welding side, right? So a lot of the times it's actually the welder that programs the equipment. The other thing too is might be a shocker to some people. Automation is not perfect, right?
Yeah.
We do a lot of work as with auto parts industry, so we will go into these shops and it's all automated, but they want us to go in there to teach people how to weld. Does that sound weird? Does anyone know as to why we go in there to teach them how to weld? What's that? Exactly. Because there's a lot of errors that the robots do. Like I say, they're not perfect, right? And so what they do is they want to train a bunch of their staff in order to repair these welds. Okay. The other, I think I'm going to basically take some information from Ryan at this point. One of the things is, if automation does come in, the term that they like to use is they're looking for a champion. So someone that will actually take the responsibility and help develop the program as well too. That would really help you when it comes to maintain your job if you go into a recession, right? Because recessions do come, they say, every 10 years. And also it will help you for your future if you want to go somewhere else as well too.
Awesome. And Chris, you're in the ironworkers, which is not necessarily known as a bastion of new technology. There's an idea among the ironworkers of being like, no, and this is not a thing to be down. It's like, this is construction. Construction usually is one of the last places where technology catches on. Where do you see technology taking a place within your school and within the unions in the construction industry?
I appreciate the way you worded that, because it is an issue, and it's an issue with a lot of the trades. And if you're not willing to be adaptive and flexible, you're just going to be left behind. Like if we go back to torch cutting using other oxy fuel, using propane and oxygen, something like that to cut. There are sometimes better ways, especially when we're in these refineries and stuff like that, beer plants, tip tanks, stuff like, and it's stainless steel. Now we're starting to introduce plasma cutting, right? If we don't start introducing new technologies within our apprenticeship, yeah, maybe the adoption rate's going to be slower. But what ends up happening, and where I think some people forget, is if you treat an apprentice like an apprentice, that's their only outcome. But if you start treating an apprentice and start looking at them, okay, now we're looking at them as journey people, we're looking at them as maybe supervision, management, ownership. They start taking the skills that you start adopting early and bringing with you, talking about automation. You start looking at maybe single 2-wire applications. right? You start looking at maybe things that you're going to have to start using tracks or robotics. Is robotics and AI going to take over everything? I don't think so, but there is an actual place for it, right? In the trades, education and understanding of it. When you start adopting things slowly, it's easier to work and grow into them. Yes, there's always going to be a fad that might go around, but there's always stuff that are going to stick around. Who here thought like all battery operated equipment was going to last? I didn't. Back in the day, a battery lasted, like 20 minutes? You're grinding 3 welds, right? I don't want to get another battery. I'm going to run an extension cord. I deal with contractors who've thrown out everything that is corded and went right to battery operated. Heavy investments, but they're looking at it and bringing down, well, I don't have to run a cord. That might take me 15 minutes. I just buy better equipment, right? Welding machines now, we used to have to tow them, throw in a truck. There's welding machines out there now the size of a shoebox. There's welding machines now that are battery powered, right? These are adaptive technologies getting in there. Then you want a battery powered unit. Simple. If you're doing an anchor or doing something on the top of a building, you're not going to be able to run the cable, right? Or
if you do need to run cables, it's 3 hours of scaffolding going up.
Thank you. Right? There are advantages, but if we don't adopt it early, start showing it to people, how are they going to use it? So there's a place.
And it's interesting because sometimes there's this feeling that the technology is replacing you. And all the technology really is replacing is the things you don't want to do. And that's what you got to remember, that those automation pieces are being brought in to do the stuff that generally humans don't want to do because they're overly repetitive, they're in very dangerous places, or they're the type of work that if I said, hey, weld me 6,000 of these same brackets tomorrow, you're like, oh, this sucks. Well, the robot never complains. But you do need to have people that are educated in that trade to watch, manage, supervise, and maintain those robots. Because like Victor said, they're not perfect. They're worse than not perfect. They're beyond dumb. If they make a mistake, they don't even know they made a mistake. Like you got to catch it on the QA side with most automation. So being a capable tradesperson is empowering automation, not the other way around. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Victor, this next question's for you. All right. What is the most significant obstacle that skilled trades workers are facing when it comes to long-term career development, and how can they overcome it?
Well, I do believe that the issue is perception, right? Because a lot of people think that once you get in the trade, you're always going to be in the trade, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But for some people, they want more, right? So, but they're always being told, well, you're always going to be electrician. You're always going to be this, right? So they don't move up and all that. So that's what I do believe is the largest obstacle for them is the whole perception.
Do you think that the public doesn't see welding enough, Victor? Like, do you think that there's not enough eyes on
there's also the perception because I'll give you my story. I'm a son of an immigrant. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. And one of the big things for any person who's immigrated into the country is they want their children to have a university degree, right? They, for them, that's success. So my oldest brother, tradesperson. So my second brother, he went to college. So I was a saving grace for the family, right? So I ended up going to university, but I was being told to go to university and all that. But it did work out for me. But there's a lot of perceptions, especially from people who immigrated into the country and all that. And I still hear that now and it's not just my background, like a European background. It's all backgrounds that is the key to success. But at the same time, you can look at Max or Chris right here. Max, correct me if I'm wrong. You started your career as a welder, and now you're the director of CWB membership. I didn't think when you started, you said, I want to be director of CWB membership and all that. And there's also Chris, who started as an iron worker, and now he's teaching the next generation of iron workers right now.
And Vic, or Ryan, what do you think is one of the obstacles that perhaps the youth face in developing their careers?
Yeah, so I go back to, so I was talking about it earlier. I mean, I think when you get out, it might sound a little odd, but I think the only person that's sort of holding you back is yourself, right? So having the confidence, you know what I mean? Sort of the desire and sort of like the, to explore what's out there, right? I mean, to sort of say, I'm going to give this a shot, or I'm going to give this a try, or, you might be a couple of years into your career and say, hey, I really enjoyed, working with that project manager. I want to go back and learn a little bit more about, accounting and scheduling, and maybe go back to, university. I think, again, I go back to sort of the sky's the limit in this industry. I do think that there's, again, just a vast array of things that you can do if you've got the belief in yourself, you've got the confidence to go do it, if you're well supported. If you're not getting support from your coworkers or your family, find somebody else to deal with, and somebody that's more sort of in your corner. But I don't think sort of those exterior sort of perceptions of what you see in the movies or on TV, or sort of the construction worker kind of down on their luck and they're kind of struggling, is in any way, shape, or form true of what this industry really is. And I think there's some sort of rebranding, so to speak, as we talk about like the salaries earlier and the positions that people can rise to, and what they really can do with their lives. I mean, I'm very on the side of like, this is a great place to be. You're in the perfect spot, and there's all sorts of opportunities for you in the future. And so that thing about somebody holding you back, and that's really you kind of in your own head saying, I can't do it, but you can, and you believe in yourself and all that kind of stuff. And look at where you are now. So that's kind of my general outlook on the positive side of, probably way too positive all the time anyway, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. So,
Chris, what about you? What do you see? Like, you see students every day, and you're looking at, I remember being a teacher. I taught for 10 years, and I remember I call them my little chickadees. You get them as little babies, and they grow, and they get their wings, and they fly off to be tradespeople. But you worry about them. You worry about the opportunities they have, and what might be, obstacles in their careers. What do you see here, in the GTA for your students as something that might be an obstacle, and how do they get through that?
Luckily enough, at least with the trades, you can actually get good in it. You can improve and you can get better at it, right? It's nice to get into a trade and being able to support yourself and your loved ones and your family, right? That doesn't always happen with a lot of things, right? You're also building this solidarity, this community with your brothers and sisters, right? You're getting to meet people all over the world. Everyone's becoming inclusive, and everyone's learning from each other, and everyone's giving back. And that's the difference, right? It's giving back, trying to better yourself. For me, if I can have my way, I would love my students to do better than I do. That's my goal, right? I used to say that I'm not a leader. And the reason why is the definition of a leader is producing leaders. And when I see nothing but leaders, maybe I finally did something, right? Give it away. You can't take this education with you. When you die, nothing's left behind. Just memories and people. Give it away. You didn't pay for it. Give it away. Educate them. Better people. Give people opportunities. Someone gave me an opportunity. I had to work at it. I had to hone my skill. Yeah, the money's great. I'm not going to lie. It was able to afford me some luxuries in life, right? Also supply and provide for my family. But I think most of us aren't always motivated by money. We're motivated by self-worth, increasing, educating. Just because you start here, remember, that is just the starting point. Get involved. Get involved in your community. Get involved in your union. Get involved with your trade. Get involved with your high school. Give back. If you had a hard time, so be it. That's just what it was. You toughed it out. You made it where you are now, and you're not stopping. But you do have an obligation. Help someone else out. If they don't know what they want to be, mentor-mentee relationships help. Who knows? Maybe if someone helped me, I'd be somewhere different. I'm happy where I'm at. But I know I owe a lot of people a lot of help and a lot of thanks. And I think if everyone takes that opportunity, I think we can actually produce something worthwhile here.
Well, that's great. And you bring up a lot of great points there, in terms of the networking, the giving back, the helping. I'm an immigrant as well, came to Canada as a little kid. And we came from a country where there was a lot of mining. So my dad already had mining under his belt, and we landed in Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatchewan. Well, what the heck's in Saskatchewan? Mines, lots of them. So that's pretty fortuitous for a dad to land in a new country, no language, no money, no clothes, no nothing, but he knew how to mine. And literally a mine's 30 minutes from Regina. He got a job within that first week of landing in this country, and it set our life up. It really did. And then I got into the trades because it was just the gimme there. Like it's the opportunity that's smacking you in the face that you're choosing to ignore, because you have a lot of distractions in life, especially when you start making a little bit of money. You're like, there's partying, there's family, there's travel, but you always have to remember that you want to keep your mind on your career. Your career is life. That's what you're going to do till you die. A career isn't just like my job next week. You could have 100 jobs in your lifetime. Your career is how they line up next to each other, like building a Lego block set. Each job, even the job you hated the most, is giving you some piece of skill, something that you're going to take away, that you're going to be able to use at the next job. And then you grab that next piece of skill, and that's the next job. And before you know it, you're sitting on a stage with 4 friends being like, how the heck did we get here? Well, you just start stacking those skills up through a lifetime, the people you meet in the networks. And it's a huge opportunity for you to advance yourself. And that's a great segue into the next question. You did that perfectly.
It's like we planned it.
Yeah. All right, Chris. What role do apprenticeships, mentorships, on-the-job training, what do they do to help young workers develop the career? And what can we do better?
There's a lot we can do better. There's always going to be you can do better. The minute there's nothing you can do better, I guess it's over, right? In all honesty, it's always good to be a little bit behind the 8 ball. It makes you hungry. It makes you better. It makes you start learning. We've all went through that. At one time, we remember a shop teacher, do this my way. That's it. But why? No one asks the why, the who, and the when anymore, right? Different people have different ways of learning. Are we all tactile learners, visual learners, audio learners? And when you start including that into your program, now you're encapsulating and helping all these people that maybe they said, oh, you know what? You might have a this, you might be a this, you might be a that. None of that matters. We're all people here. We're all trying to survive, right? If you can help someone learn and improve and get a stable job, produce work where you feel self-work. We go to the Labor Day parade. I just bother my kids nonstop through that parade saying, we built this, we built that. It doesn't matter who we are. We're part of the trades. We take ownership, and that becomes our pride. We pass that on to other generations, right? There's a lot of families who grow up that way and start pushing their kids into that because of their self-worth. A lot of people don't force them, but they see the worth of it, right? Especially when you're going to some other industry where there might be a lower end job, right? You start seeing the worth where, hey, you know what? I want to get into a trade. Apprenticeship is paid for, right? There's government grants. Some programs, they'll actually take you out of work and pay you unemployment to learn. And it's a nice opportunity when it's available, right? Then you have a scenario where I get into a trade. I work X amount of months to even see if I like it. Sometimes I don't like it, right? Maybe I want to try something else. Maybe I want to try a different trade. Maybe now by being on a job site, I like this, but I really want to do this. It opens up your world of possibilities. We're all connected. We like to do outreach programs, go to fairs, career fairs, and stuff like that. When you're sitting in a career fair and you'll see the iron workers, the pipe fitters, the boiler makers, the laborers, the electricians, all these people make up the provincial building trades in Ontario. They all fight for fair wage. They all try and bring everyone up through that system. Now you have a scenario where, it's one connecting trade with all that? Welding. Each part of it, we weld. It doesn't encapsulate all our work because we're doing fitting and everything, but it's part of our trade. It's like a tool, like a tape measure. All these other trades use it. We can always debate who does it better, but what I'm getting at is welding is in majority of these trades, from ironworking, pipe fitting, boiler makers, millwrights. Thank you. Then you're talking about electricians, laborers, right? Plumbers. So we can keep going on and on, but then this is going to be an 8-hour session, right? But now we see a common link, right? Within that schooling. Now you get a red seal. Now you can go across Ontario and get paid the same rate because now we have a system that says you can be trained in Ontario. Now you go work in Alberta. We recognize that training. You get full top dollar. Now our system is so valuable. A lot of our trade locals, a lot of our trade unions are actually international. So theoretically, you can go into the States. A lot of our certification is not only recognized in Canada, it's recognized in North American parts of Europe. Now it's opening up your wheelhouse. There's lots of contractors here who bid on airports in like Bermuda or the Bahamas, which that'd be a wonderful place in the wintertime, right? But you take those opportunities, you share those opportunities, and you fight for the best education to ensure the best wages. And this way, it's easier to go to the bargaining table, just like anyone else does to get a raise. You know, you're going to beat them with education. You're going to beat them with skills. That's all you're going to get. And now when you bring that skill set, that company is more profitable. And now that company realizes your value and can even take on potential more opportunities.
Yeah. Ryan, with your industry, engineering is kind of a rat race. And the weld tech world can be very competitive, right?
Sure.
How do you see apprenticeships and mentorships play out in your field?
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I think it's truly one of the most rewarding things is to help somebody through the career, right? So, I mean, early on in my career, after I finished my training program, I was in Niagara Falls in an engineering office, and we had hired a couple of new welding engineers or welding technologists that had come in, and being able to be like the seasoned guy with 3 years of experience or 4 years of experience at that point, and sort of help them understand kind of what we're doing and how it works, and to kind of develop a friendship with them and see them later on. And, I'm on the job over here and I'm managing this project and he's managing that project, and sort of seeing them from where they were and sort of touching on both of your teaching experience. Like there's a very rewarding piece to, selfishly to yourself about seeing them grow, but it's exactly what the industry needs, right? So there's someone that may not have had the same experience or the same opportunity or came from the same background, but you're there together and helping them out, guiding them through, what you've learned and things maybe not to do. Again, to me is exactly really what you should do. Is the right thing. It's sort of the social contract that we should all have and sort of treat each other fairly. Obviously it's the right thing for the company and all the rest of it, but I mean, mentorships and training and kind of, that's what this is all about. Like it's sort of one big, one team in the industry, helping each other, all just sort of trying to do a job. But I mean, to me, it's extremely important. It rewards you in ways that you'll be surprised by. And then just sort of lasting relationships and friendships that you get out of, again, helping people and mentoring people and showing them sort of the right way or the right path or the right way to do it, is just, again, it's just invaluable and exactly what we need to do in the industry, hands down.
And, and Victor, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I want to kind of put a twist on this for you.
Oh, great.
Because I like doing that to people. is the idea that, there's union work, which has a very structured apprenticeship model. And our apprenticeship model in Canada is one it's the envy of the world. Trust me, I've worked in countries all over the world, and our apprenticeship model is something everyone is jealous of. We produce the best tradesmen on the planet by far. But when we look at CWB, how can we support apprenticeships or mentorships or the future?
Well, like you say, I manage a team of welding technologists and welding engineers, so it's no apprenticeship program that's involved with that. What a lot of it is mentorship, right? And I've been very fortunate in my career to have a lot of good mentors. My number one mentor, his name was Andy McCartney. Some of you may have heard of his name. He's also a welding engineer himself, and he mentored me along. And when it came time for him to retire, he recommended that I take over the team. And he was grooming me for that position as well, too. And, I owe a lot to him. And, funny story, it's actually true. He loved welding engineering. He just didn't want to do the administration work anymore. So what ended up happening was I was a welding engineer. He was the manager, and we switched positions. Right. So now I've been reporting to him for about a good 12, 13 years. Now he's reporting to me. Right. And then even before they gave me the position, that was one of the questions they asked me. How do you feel about that? And I'm like, you know what? If it was anybody else, I would have concerns. But luckily, it worked out great. Now he's fully retired. And I remember about a month ago, I had a conversation with Ryan. And he was asking me what I like about my position. And I was telling him, my favorite part is mentoring my staff and all that, right? Because someone took the time to do that with me. The way to pay him back is I have to pass that along as well, too. And believe it or not, that is my favorite part of my position. And at first when I did take the manager's role, some of the questions that were being asked me was like, well, yeah, why do we do that? Right? And I had to remember why. And because it's like anything else, you've been doing it for like 10 years, and then someone asks you a question, well, how do you do that? And it's like, you have to think, well, yeah, how do I do that again? Especially when my son comes to me with a math question, right? Because I skip 10 steps to get to the answer. And it's just like, well, how'd you get there? And I have to sit back and I have to break down everything in my head and all that. But in our role, it's a mentorship.
Yeah, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I remember my mentors very specifically. You never forget your mentors. They're people that stay with you forever. And sometimes it's interesting because you don't realize that someone is a mentor sometimes till after they're done mentoring you, right? You just work with someone and they end up just being your favorite person at work or whatever, or the old grumpy guy, but he always answers your questions. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, you're like, I would not be here if it wasn't for that person there. I have 2 red seals. My first one was in welding. My welding mentor was Larry Paling. Yeah, I was a laborer. I didn't even start off as a welder. You guys were already 10 steps ahead of me when I started. I was the broom pusher, chip thumper from the bins. That's all I did at minimum wage. And then I had one of the welders on the job ask me if I would stay after hours to learn how to weld, because he was going to be, he was willing to teach me. And he's the one that got me on staring at that little blue light for the next 25 years. So he was the one. But then 10 years later, I ran into Terry, who was the first guy that noticed that I liked to fabricate. And he's like, you're pretty good at putting stuff together. Do you like math? And I was like, I don't know if I like math. And, it's always that question, do you like math? Your instinct is to say no, which is a really stupid instinct to say, no, I don't like math. Because if you really stop and think about it, most of us probably are okay with it. We just want to say we didn't like it because that's what you say in high school to get out of doing homework. But as an adult, you do math every day. You fill up your gas tank, you look at the gas price, you're buying oranges. You're doing math all the time. You don't even think about it. And when it's work, it just starts to happen, like Victor said. And Terry put me on my path to fabrication towards my red seal and fab, which I know there's people here that are practicing for that red seal right now. Tough red seal, do your homework. But you always kind of need someone to A, kind of get you on the right track, or B, push you onto the right track, kind of whether you knew it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who's your mentor? Who's someone from your past that you can bring up that's like, they made a difference?
I've had a lot of mentors in the trade. Lib Oliveri, who's actually one of the first journey people. And it was nice because it was a small crew, small company, having to be very productive, very competitive. Martin Minnan, he was actually the person I ended up replacing. Your mentors can actually teach you about your trade, but don't disvalue the people in your lives. I learned a lot of my ethic and my worth through my father. He's not in the trades directly, but I learned a lot from him. I'm the oldest of a family of 3. Funny enough is I learned more from my brother as a civil engineer and my sister, right? It's not about age, right? All of you guys might be a mentor or a mentee. I could also say all my apprentices, I learned more from them than I think they learned from me. And it's giving back and being adaptive. So, and yourself, like talking about the guy who wants to push you. I met Max, and that was probably the biggest headache of my life, right? Max is all of a sudden pushing.
You don't want to get by web.
Pushing that. But have we ever stopped and think, it's easy to say no, like we hate math. What happens if you say yes? Where's it going to go? What happens if you actually get up and do that thing? What happens if you actually stop talking about all the problems and start working on the solution? Because the problems are easy to talk about. The solution takes work, but only one of them gives you self-worth, right? And that really is what it is. Take someone under your wing. It's easy. It's free, right? Teach anybody. Teach your neighbor, right?
No, my neighbor
Teach your
trusts me to
kids.
fix all his stuff.
Well, then they don't have to call you.
There's his boat, and every year is a new project list from my neighbor. But
It's easy. One of the best tips I ever heard, it was actually from a YouTuber, right? And I was lucky enough to meet him, welding tips and tricks, right? And his comment was, all you are is a 6th grader trying to teach a 5th grader. And if it wasn't for something that simple that someone might have said was a throwaway line, I don't think I'd be comfortable taking the job that I have. Sometimes I wish I was the person people think I am, But you know what? I'm trying to learn as much from you as I'm trying to give. And that's where being in a group like this, I learn a lot from Ryan. I learn a lot from Victor. I learned too much from him, right? To better myself so I can give back, because that's all he does. He gives back 24/7. So at least some of us can pick up the weight.
Ryan, who was one of your mentors in your career?
So I remember I was about 15, first high school welding class, right? So our high school welding teacher comes in. He's on a Harley Davidson chopper, right? Right. Huge pipes there, and then comes in, right? He's all dressed in like black and ponytail and tats everywhere. And I'm like, are you in the right place here? Like, yeah, right? But he was great. He was a welder, had been all over the place. He was cool, right? Very impressionable. We were building all sorts of stuff, stoves and, skidoo trailers. We're up north, just really, really impressionable. The next one was Jack Pacey at Northern College. He was just a legend in the Canadian welding industry. We had very, very small classes because no one wants to go to Kirkland Lake. And we went from 30 to 12 to about 8 of us. And then he was sort of my program advisor. Just a beautiful man, just caring, compassionate, smart as a whip, so incredibly patient, and just all these lessons. And then, when I got into sort of my professional career, and is really in Houston, I worked with a guy named Mike Santoro. He was the president of Chicago Bridge and Iron, or CB&I, all their union business in North America, before he went to Houston. And then he was like the global operations manager for all of our union business across, again, like the whole Western Hemisphere. And, we lived, close to each other. Our families became friends. Just a fantastic guy. So compassionate about, again, teaching people, being direct and fair and firm when he needed to be. Great with, just clients. You're just one of these guys that's just so impressive, right?
Yeah.
Just, smart, funny, great at his job, so informative, but just a wonderful 3 sets of people that I've come across. And there's been so many, but those are the ones that stick out to me is just sort of like, again, like the Harley Davidson coming in and, just airbrushed, it was like some skeleton thing coming off of it. I was like, this is pretty cool.
I want to do that.
Okay. All right.
You just want
Probably, it's pretty cool.
Victor, you already named one of your mentors. You got somebody else that was formidable in your life?
Believe it or not, I have to go back to Andy again, because he was not only a mentor for me, like on the business side or the welding side as a welding engineer, but also as a family. Our families are very close. And, it's funny that sometimes our wives talk to each other more than we do, type of thing, right?
Might not be a good
yeah. No. And, no, I have to say him, again, I sat across Doug Luciani many times in my career as well, too. So, but another individual, his name is Bob Bosworth. He was a welding technologist. He was part of our team and all that, but I looked at him as an older brother, actually, right? Even though I had 2 older brothers, I was, I looked at him as an older brother more than I do my brothers, and all that. And we still keep in contact today. Great individual. He's still in the welding industry.
All right. Well, this leads us to our next question, which is a bit of a tagline that we hear a lot today. And I think it's important that we discuss it because it can be confusing or sometimes, kind of muddy with the younger generations coming up. But we talk lots about inclusion, right? And diversity in the industry, inclusion in the industry. And generally, in the spirit of the language, diversity and inclusion are 2 very wonderful, beautiful things. But lately, we've been hearing those words in a negative connotation of diversity being a bad thing, of inclusion being a bad thing. What are we doing in the trades, or what can we do in the trades? And we're going to start with you, Ryan, to address the ideas of diversity inclusion. What can we do better? What's important to take away from those conversations?
Yeah. So, I think the sort of the sort of inflection point, so to speak, of where you get the biggest, broadest sort of introduction to the industry, is really at the middle school, high school levels, right? You're seeing the greatest mix of people are kind of coming to the institutions to learn. And so through, again, I had, wood shop and automotive going through, middle school, but there's been sort of a bit of a steady decline probably since I graduated, sort of in the trades, metal fabrication, automotive, those types of things. Again, a long trend, probably for, 25 years. You see some of that coming on now, But going back to the skilled trades and what the industry can do, I think it's a lot of what some of the things that Chris is doing, for example, where he's, introducing himself to, the high schools, introducing yourself to the middle schools, going to the trade shows. The exposure to the industry is where I think you're going to sort of catch the greatest amount of people that might be interested in this trades. And so going back to your story about, your father being a miner, and sort of somewhat leading towards sort of the physical side, the physical trades, it's, I don't know what the statistics are, but if you're not really into the industry, if your parents are both in IT or university professors or doctors and a lawyer, what is the likelihood that you're actually going to be, a welder, right? So I think, that inflection point or where you catch the, the biggest and broadest sort of group of folks is again at the middle school, the high school. It's through the outreach programs. I think the CWA Foundation does a tremendous amount as well with the giveaways and it's continued. So there's got to be a whole lot more of that. Again, I think collaboratively across the building trades, there could be a whole lot more investment into that, right? Because if you've never seen it, how are you going to even know? And I think there's also the other side. I go back to that, interesting high school welding, teacher, where if you're really just being taught about what, 70-18 is and it's 70,000 tensile strength and it's all position, you're not really seeing what the industry is. So the quality of the education and the introduction about the industry, and as we're talking about these numbers, I think those are the types of things that sort of potentially turn people on that otherwise wouldn't be interested or come across the trades, right? They just don't seriously consider it. So, I mean, it's a bit of an end around kind of answer there, but I think that's where you catch, or the opportunity is to catch the greatest amount of people. And I think that's where the industry has to come back to is, again, all the colleges, all the universities, trade schools, the union halls, everybody kind of coming together and again, reintroducing themselves, also pushing at the other sort of local levels as well with municipalities about how do we get, funding in the trades. Actually, my wife is somewhat connected to the Durham School Board, and it's the first time in 30 years they're actually increasing the funding into trades in that school board. Hope to see others as well, but it's sort of literally sort of kind of come full circle after 20. Yeah, I mean, everybody was going to be, going into computer science or becoming a kinesiologist or becoming a teacher. Like, all my friends, right? Like, what do you mean you're going into welding? Like, what's wrong with you, right? So that whole piece, I think, as the next generation, that sort of, sort of the stewards of how do we grow this industry. That's the challenge to, again, to sort of undo sort of those sort of negative connotations about the industry, right? But again, I go back to that's how you catch the most amount of people. The other part of it is we talked about earlier about there's literally no women in our industry.
Less than 5% of the workforce is women in the trades.
Right.
That's abysmally low. Yeah.
I mean,
everyone looks at the two women in the audience.
Right.
How are you advise that? But that's something we have to correct.
There's like, it's insane. Like half of our society has zero interest, right? The other statistic that I looked up there that, from the construction side or from the project management side, there's very few women. I mean, maybe I think there's 25% or 22% graduates out of universities or degreed women engineers coming out that otherwise would be project leads and, project managers and mid-level management, executive management. So if you're not really seeing yourself, right, at all, if you're not visible and you're not having examples in that kind of, that front, if you don't have a friend or an uncle or a cousin or somebody that you don't see, any of that, then those numbers sort of are going to be what those numbers are. Right. So I think, again, going back to, there's all these great things that are happening around, like women in engineering, women in nuclear. You talked earlier about, you're going to Nashville next and that conference as well. Right. So I think all those things are going in the right direction, but there is a tremendous amount that has to be done. And it's a huge issue. And it's something that needs to be tackled because it's terrible, really.
We need the workforce.
Well, we need the workforce, but I mean, it's something that's so those barriers are those things that are otherwise, in my opinion, like we need to be working with women and talking about how, what we can do to make it sort of more of an inclusive, friendly, sort of welcoming atmosphere as opposed to it being something that just sort of steering clear from completely, right? It's a big issue.
Yeah.
So more to do.
Victor, what do you see from the CWB angle in terms of trying to support diversity and inclusion in the workplace?
Well, I want to continue on with one of the points that Ryan mentioned, and he was talking about the CWB Foundation. They have a program called Women of Steel. So they'll bring in a group of women, and they'll train them on all different types of processes of welding. And I can't remember if it's a 2-week, 3-week. It's actually quite an extensive program. And that's what they're doing in order to promote women getting into the industry. But if you don't mind, I'm going to veer off just a little bit here. I like to tell a story about when I was in university. In my class, we were a class of about 75 students. And in there was 10 women. Okay. Now, the top 3, right? And these 3 would always, 1 year, one would be 1, and then the other term, the other one would be 2nd. But these 3 were always the top 3, and there were women, all 3. And they all 3 had very successful careers, right? One of them, she decided to go for her MBA after graduating, and now she's taking over her father's business, even though she has an older brother who has an engineering degree as well, too. She was the one that had the, hate to say it, the brains to run the business, because and also she is like very intelligent and also very how do you say it, savvy as well too. The other one decided she didn't want to be an engineer, so she took the hard route to become a lawyer. So she went to engineering school and then decided, I don't want to be a lawyer, so she went to law school, right? One of the most difficult ways to do it, because first of all, you have to write that LSAT exam, and it's very English oriented. And for the last 4 years, all she was doing is math and science, right? So she had a bit of a challenge on her first year. I believe it was around 10, 15 years ago. She made it as a partner of one of the big law firms in downtown Toronto. She decided that she wanted to have a family instead. So now she works for like a financial company as their corporate lawyer. So then this way she can have a family, but she's successful. The third one ended up being the dean of our program, right? So, which is very very long and extensive to become, because she had to go for a master's degree, then her PhD, and then she ended up being an assistant professor, associate professor, and then a professor. And then after that, she became the dean of our program. So one of the things I've seen in the last 25 years is the influence that women are making to this industry. A lot of my contacts now when I go to clients are women now as well, too. And I have to say, some of the best welders I've seen are women as well, too. So
As an instructor,
Yeah.
I can verify that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
And Chris, for you from an instructor side and here in the union,
Well, at least with us in the union, right? It doesn't matter who or what you are. We're all getting paid the same rate, right? We're basing it on years, education, and hours. It's simple that way. It's a great equalizer. Nobody makes more that way. Maybe some industries are like that, and that's unfair, right? When you start talking about all the work that we potentially have, all these new projects, if you're not inclusive and diversified, where are you going to get your workforce from, right? You need everybody to make this work. If everyone doesn't work, nobody works, right? So when you look at it that way, you got to look at it differently. I know some people think these are foreign words or whatever. They're not foreign words, right? It's all about being a family, right? When we talk about union, there's a lot of brothers and sisters, and that's how we speak of it. It's because we want to represent everybody, right? Everybody, no matter where you're from, has a different point of view. Those point of views make us stronger, not weaker. Differences don't make us stronger. They make us tougher. They make us learn more. They make all the positive things happen. When you cook, do you only cook with salt? Right? You use the whole pantry. That's what gives you flavor, right? That's what makes things exciting, right? When you go downtown, look at all the diversity. Look at all the different cultures being represented, right? It's beautiful. Those are things that will make us go forward, not backwards, right? That's why it's not important. It's a must, right? And we need everybody to man this. We need everybody to power this. We need everyone to move forward, regardless of who or what you are. That's why we need to be inclusive.
Yeah, it's Ryan, you brought up a point there. It's hard to be what you don't see, right? And that was something that affected me lots in my life as a young man coming up, because I grew up in a different kind of life. Lots of tattoos, got in trouble lots when I was a kid. It was fairly colorful upbringing, I guess is a good way to put it. And in all my years of working as a welder, I never had a female boss. Talking 30 years in the industry, I never had a female boss. Never even a female foreman. I never had a person of color or indigenous be my boss or a foreman, ever. Right? So for me, for a long time, it was a thought that I could never have those jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Because my job was to be down there, worker guy, red mohawk with the tattoos. You're just a welder. I never thought that I could elevate myself until, to your point, I just gave myself the self-worth, being like, you know what? I don't care if I've never seen someone like me be a boss. I want to be a boss. And that's when I started my first company. And then it's like, I don't care if I've never been taught by someone else like me. I want to be a teacher. And you push yourselves into those positions. But granted, not everyone has that type of drive or ambition. And the goal is to really make it easier for everyone to have those roles. One of the things that we've worked with the foundation at the CWB so hard is to bring women into the industry. That's great, but that's just step one. The next part of the industry is keeping them and having them get their red seals and becoming superintendents and supervisors and bosses and owners. And that doesn't just go for women. It goes for indigenous. It goes for immigrants that are coming here. It goes for the industry and home, because we saw the stats. Those jobs need to get done. There's tunnels, there's infrastructure, there's buildings, there's skyscrapers. They're going up one way or the other. Now, who's going to build them, right? We got to all be on board and support that. And I know that in our world, sometimes we come across those people that give our industry a bad name. And if I could give everyone here a lesson, is be an ally. Don't let that conversation happen in your workplace. If you hear someone being a jerk or being rude or racist or sexist, stop them. Don't just be like, oh, it's just Jimmy says dumb things. No, it's all of our duties to make everyone feel good at work and safe. We're just there to make a buck. We're not there to have our lives ruined. We're there to work and come home and be happy, right? So if you guys see something bad, do something about it, right? Be active, be an advocate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I know it's exactly the right thing that we're talking about here that's what change happens, right? I mean, there's a reason why people are not interested in our business. And those are the types of things that we generally have to, if we want these things, we've got to do things differently. We can't just keep saying, hey, we have, a sexual harassment policy. Hey, we've got this program. I mean, those programs have been around for a while, but like, what are the repercussions for that type of stuff? Like what really happens to you? What are the consequences, when these stupid conversations sort of come up, right?
Yeah.
When people are passed over or not given these opportunities, it's again, it's sort of counterintuitive that if we're not really, willing to make the changes there, then you're not really going to see sort of these numbers in the climb. So then it just becomes sort of somewhat of a lip service. Yeah. So if we're really serious about it, right? And I think we need to be, and it's really, again, the right thing to do. And we certainly, need that, that workforce, and we need people to feel welcome, and we need people to feel inclusive, and we need people to feel safe. Right. Mm-hmm. So, again, I think it's, we're saying all the right things. We weren't having these conversations probably 20 years ago. Right. But it is going and continuing moving in the right direction. I certainly hope that, it continues to sort of, catch fire, so to speak. Going back to your point, I mean, again, World War I, World War II, women were welding, right?
Yeah.
There's
we went backwards, right?
I mean, it's just like they built the ships, they built the bombs, they built the boats, they built the tanks. Like, there's great welders there. I mean, there's a movie here where, again, the three women, they put the man on the moon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Victor was a World War II.
Not that old.
I think the movie was Hidden Figures. It was the three women that did the calculations, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were sort of oppressed and pushed back, and all sorts of racism at that time. But the three smartest women, the three smartest people in the world, were the ones doing the calculations to put man on the moon. Like, it's just, It's like this thing that we need to get past and things that we need to move forward. We really do. It's just terrible, really. So,
All right. Well, we
Yeah.
burned through an hour and 15
did?
already.
Wow.
So we're going to do our last question, and then we're going to get to the floor. All righty. So I know some people are getting a little long here. We're getting there. We'll get there. All right. So stay with us. All right. So last question. This one's for all of us. We just went through the Angie's report, which is a big report across Canada about people's work satisfaction. With the welding trades rated as one of the highest satisfaction jobs in the market, saying that most welders that are in the trades actually enjoy and are not looking to leave the trades. The CWB Association, we also did our salary and survey, and we found similar results that welders once in the trade, and fabricators, engineers, anyone in the steel trades, have a very high level of job satisfaction. So we know that people, when they're in, are in and they like it. Why do we still have trouble getting people interested? Why can we still not get the kids to be interested at an earlier age in these trades when we know they're going to be happy? So we'll start with you, Victor. We'll work our way down.
That's all I'll answer it.
Yeah.
My two kids are always on their iPhones as well too. One of the things that I was talking about before, a lot of it has to do with perception. A lot of people think it's not a high paying job, it's not a good job, it's a dirty job, it's this, it's that. So we need to change that perception, because one of the things I think that we have to remind the youth right now is only job that's secure is the one that you have to be there physically. So all trades, you have to be there physically. You can't put up a building if the guy's sitting at home on a computer going like this, right? So any job, and I've stressed this a lot with a lot of people, do not tell your boss you can do your job from home, because now you just told your boss that he doesn't need you because he can hire anyone around the world now, right? But a job that you physically have to be there, you physically have to be there, right? So that's going to be secured, and the only jobs that is basically the trades. So I think that's what we need to start telling our kids. Now, I look at my son, I go, he's not going to be a tradesperson, and I'll tell you why. Because, when he was younger, we had it's called the fort set, and it has instructions, and you put the fort together. And he was like, "Okay, Dad, put this over here. Okay, now make it go like this, and all this." So I'm looking at him, and I'm like, "Okay, he's not a tradesperson. He's probably more he wants to be a manager." Type of thing. So I saw him, and plus, anytime I do work around the house, he goes, "Hey, I'm going to come and help you." Great. Works with me for 10, 15 minutes, and then he realizes it's work and he leaves. I think the main thing is, I think we have to stress, only job that's secured is one that you physically have to be there.
Well, and to your point, we really saw that during COVID.
Yeah.
Right? Because COVID was the big leveler for the country, because a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people were unemployed. But how many welders lost their jobs? Almost none.
Yeah.
Because we got put on the essential list like week one. Week one, the country was like, okay, no one can work except welders. You still got to work. You still got to be out there because we are necessary to society. So that was very quickly evident that a lot of things can get turned off, but the trades can't. This isn't a faucet that's ever off. It's always on the go. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, going back to it, I mean, it's some of what we talked about already about, changing the perceptions of the trades, right? I mean, I think it's a very rewarding career in terms of it's something bigger than yourself, right? It's sort of something you'd be proud of and something you look back to. We talked about, we're going downtown Toronto and, we built this. You sort of, in many cases, you're sort of changing the landscape and you're so proud and, you know what I mean, of what you've been able to accomplish, right? I do think, we've been sort of talking about this for forever, basically. I mean, since I've been in the industry, about why isn't it something? And so I generally think in terms of how do we move that needle, so to speak, is, again, going back to sort of introducing this to, the middle schools and the high schools where you can. I mean, some high school teachers may not let you in, or some administrators may not have a Harley. They may not have a Harley. I mean, they just may not, right? So I do think that like it takes effort and a change in what we've been doing and some changes in policy. But I also think that, through companies, through, again, through the industry committees, through, the various, unions and trade halls and, have everyone sort of supporting it, maybe from all levels of government at the same time too, that these are the types of things that you would need to do to sort of move the needle in a way that is sort of meaningful. Again, you have to sort of invest to sort of otherwise get the results and have a plan and a strategy and such and so forth to get people interested in doing it. You can't see it for 70 minutes on Tuesday and Thursday in grade 9, 10, and 11 and be like, I want to be a welder. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's not going to like accounting, or be a welder, right? Like it's unless, right? If you're not exposing people to it, right? It's like, it's just not going to happen unless, your uncle had a welding machine or, you were exposed to it in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's about, again, going back to inflection points, introducing two people to it. And at the same time too, like, again, who are you interfacing with at those levels that may have real credibility about what this might look like? Does a project manager from a massive construction site ever go in and be like, yeah, I started right here. Like I started in this booth right here. This was my booth. Like, would they go? They probably would love to go. But those types of programs and those types of initiatives that I think, if in any way, shape, or form possible, and that kind of drive gets there, that's where you're going to see, again, some shifting from 0 at least up to maybe 5, some sort of needle move, right? So again, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Chris? Going back to what you're saying about COVID, we were seeing a huge uptick, right? I started just before COVID, I believe, here, right? I saw the biggest increase in our local and a bunch of other locals, right? A lot of people start realizing the value of being unionized, having one voice, having the strength, camaraderie, and the solidarity of all their brothers and sisters, right? And we took our largest amount of apprentices that year. So how did everyone else lose a job? We never even missed a beat here, right? Because of what you were saying. It was an essential. We had to keep building, right? When people say, is AI going to take over your industry? No, because AI couldn't help us out of this mess, right? You look at a lot of jobs that a lot of automation or AI or robotics are getting into. It was a lot of jobs that people were at home, right? We see that in our day-to-day lives as we go shop and we carry on with, right? So if you always have a skilled trade, you always have something to lean back on, right? Even if you retire, you can go tinker in your shed or however it is, right? There is self-worth by using your hands and actually producing a physical product. But I think that's where some of the misnomer comes from. The amount of training and understanding and education is higher than I would ever imagine. But achieving those goals motivated me to keep making more goals, right? And it gave me a lot of self-worth, right? In the schools, it's about showing those opportunities, right? We talk about inclusion and diversity, and it's a lot easier to understand that when you see people that you can relate to in positions. Well, what happens if you knew they were there, but you were never exposed? I've been lucky enough to be helping out with these groups here and seeing like the women in the metal industry, absolute monsters in their community. I never even knew they were there, right? How about the other women in the group, right? Oh, have you not seen the positive changes by having women on job sites where these are things we should have all been fighting for, but yet it took one organization and one group to actually get it done? You should be applauding those people. You should be supporting those people, right? We have rich history, especially with Indigenous people, especially in the ironworkers alone, right? I was lucky enough to work with a bunch of them, and I was highly educated by them, right? Growing down in downtown Toronto, I lived in college in Augusta, right? And I saw everybody. I got to meet everybody. And that there, by meeting and understanding those people, changed my outlook now. So if we just did that with everything else we did, tell kids in college or high school or elementary, these are actually feasible options. You like playing with Tinker toys, Legos, maybe not Minecraft, but it's not like mining. But you get what I'm getting at, right?
So my Minecraft house is pretty dope, all right?
But you can see where these things are easier. Physically getting involved, bringing mind over metal, women in the industry. I was lucky enough to partake in that. And I'll be honest with you, I went there for my own self-value because I learned so much from these young women with their parents building art and seeing the creative mind and literally seeing them make sparks, create sparks, and you just see that in their eyes. That actually gave me the motivation to come back to work and give more away, push more, right?
Mhm.
But we need to give everyone that experience. When we go to trade schools, right? There's people like, well, I have ADHD, this and that. A lot of us have that, right? But we don't talk about it, right? I have kids who have ADHD, right? I deal with that issue. I never talk about it, but maybe we should. Maybe there's someone who feels left out. I love this trade and I love ironworking because it's different. It challenges me every day to something different. And it only asks for one thing: be better than yesterday. That's it. If you're better today than you were yesterday, you're winning every day.
There we go. That's that was a good speech. That was good. That was good.
Taco.
All right. Well, you have a little bit of everybody here from the industry. We got 3 from the local area here. I'm the traveling wanderer, but if there's any questions, we have a microphone that Daniela has. So raise your hand and she will come to you with the microphone, and you can ask any of us a question.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Hi guys.
Hello.
My question is about mentorship. You guys have all been mentees and mentors. What qualities make a good mentor, and what should, people getting into the trade be looking for in sponsors and teachers and mentors?
Who wants to start?
I'll go first. Mentors, it's important to take your time and understand. We're all going to learn in different ways, and that's not always a bad thing. If you can break things down to simple tasks and work and start increasing that skill set, it's a lot easier to learn. But this is a two-way relationship. The mentor and mentee is a two-part exchange. The person who's being mentored also has to be willing to open up their mind and understand something. You might be learning something from someone that currently doesn't make sense, but you have all those years of experience. Those years of experience sometimes trump education in a book. They're real life skills. And sometimes, I hate to say it, I was told when I was younger, find the oldest person on site, mentor under them, because they're not going to be around very long. Get as many skills as possible. One of the other things, like Victor is saying, put the phone away, be quiet, listen for those pearls of wisdom. This person's near the end. What's the best thing to keep a mentor around? Carry the heavy load, right? And absorb, be a human sponge. But now you have a responsibility. You got to give it back. Someone gave it to you for free. You got to give it back. Because if you take it with you, then it's finally gone.
Brian, you want to take a shot at it?
Yeah. So, I think in terms of what you're looking for in terms of a mentor, someone that's, they're productive, they're doing quality work, they're safe, and then they're also a real professional, right? So they're getting there on time. They're organized, they're prepared, they're thinking about what they're doing for their day. But, typically those kind of come in threes where they're, productive, they really know their work, they're proficient, they're capable, they understand how to do it. Again, they demonstrate a great safety policy, understand, some of the PPE that's required, watching out for others that are sort of in the vicinity of the area. You're not, gouging or grinding into others and that kind of thing. And again, they're sort of, producing a really high quality product, right? So to me, that's exactly what you're looking for. And again, someone that's, respectful of what the company policies are, the customer's property, and at the same time, the peers that they're working with. To me, those are the things that sort of, the right kind of person that you're looking for. And then you on the other side, you're just listening to everything that they say. You're watching what they say. You're patterning what they say or what they do, how they handle themselves. That's how you want to sort of baseline who you're going to be, and someday that someone's actually going to be following you and sort of demonstrating those sort of work habits, right? But that's the stuff that I would suggest or that I would recommend you look for. Victor?
Not only do they need to know the position and also be able to teach it to you, one of the things that I value the most from my mentor was the fact that, when he used to call me or I used to call him, we would spend probably, 20 minutes personal time talking, and then 2 minutes about the business, and we're on our way type of thing. So what I like to do sometimes is when you get those calls, Vic, I got a quick question for you. okay, how was your weekend? I would say to them, right? It's just to make, calm down, bring it down, because there could be some excitable things happening in our industry on a regular basis, because we do get involved with a lot of different things. And, they go, oh, yeah, I did this, and we'll talk and all that. But that's what I learned the most from him. Our relationship extended outside of the work as well, too, type of thing. So, and he looked out, like one of the things that I mentioned before was he groomed me to take over his position. And, every year we always have to ask our staff, is there any other position you want within the organization? And I'm like, okay, guys, you got to be honest with me. I don't care if you even say you want my job, right? And, one person on my team says, yeah, I wouldn't mind your job. And I'm like, well, when are you looking at it, right? And he goes, 5 years. I go, perfect, right? No, but I have to, what I always say to them is, there's no wrong answer when I ask you this question. I go, if you're happy where you are, you're happy where you are. Right. But if you want to move up, let me know, because then I'll put you in touch with the right people and who you need to talk to about that.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the points that he makes is really keen. I had someone tell me when I was younger, say, don't work for the job you have, work for the job you want. Right. So for me, I want to be a business owner. I started volunteering with my local Regina chapter, and I met other they were young, they were in their 30s. I was in my 20s at the time. To me, they were older, but they were just starting out with their first businesses. And so I really latched onto what they were doing, because they were making the mistakes that I didn't want to make. So I'm learning from what I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to be a business owner. I knew I wasn't there yet, but I want to get close to someone who's doing it, right? Because I'm going to learn from them. When I wanted to be a fabricator, I got close to someone who was the head fabricator in my company, because that's the job I wanted, And when I wanted to move up into corporate, I started hanging out with the corporates and being like, what is it that makes it different from being in front of the desk to being behind the desk? What are the things I'm going to need to know? And then the interesting thing in this trade is I don't think I've ever run into someone who said, no, I'm not telling you, right? They're almost to the T. Everyone shared with me something that I was able to take to heart and work on, or they would even just say, just come hang out with me. Just follow me around for a day. Just see what I do. That's awesome. That teaches you lots, right? So if you want to get somewhere, find someone who's there now, right? And then try to be that, because they're doing it already. So they got the pieces. And then it's your twist, and it's your soul you put into it to make it your niche, right? All right.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? Oh, right here. Okay.
All right. That's right here. So I kind of wanted to touch what you guys were talking about a little while ago about getting young people into the trades. We can talk about women specifically and just young people in the trades. Where are the jobs in that kind of field, getting them at the young school level? Where can anybody interested, me, myself, be looking for a good spot to be putting ourselves?
Okay, I want to start that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, volunteering, right? So volunteering, I come from a communist background, so we have a saying in communism, volunteerism is the grease of the gears of society. The gears are the machines, the industries, the businesses that you get paid for. But there's always that volunteership that's just the grease to make things run a little smoother, right? The association is a volunteer organization. The AWS, there's all these groups that are volunteer associations. And what they do is they just bring people together that are like-minded. And that is a great area for ideas to come out of, a great, seed box for that to come out of. The other piece that you want to really have, if you're looking to contribute, I would say this is career advice going forward, is if that anyone in this group is looking to be a teacher, put yourself down that path. All right. Put yourself down that path, because there is so many openings for teachers across Canada right now that we are struggling finding good young people to come in and teach. All right. So, the sooner you can get to a red seal, the sooner you can get into a position where you can start officially giving back. Because volunteering, you can do it anytime. But really, to give back most directly to the industry in my life has been teaching. When I became a teacher is when I felt like I was actively, day in, day out, putting, my effort into making the next generation be stronger.
You need to give to get, right? So if you want to bring people in, you got to make that effort. Not always people are hearing about it, right? Not always people have a connection to a trade. Not always people know someone in a union. Not always we're seeing this on TV. We're just seeing what the most popular thing is, right? Or whatever is on YouTube or whatever, right? We find these things because we're interested in it. What happens if you don't even know you're interested in it, right? That's where talking, sharing comes in, right? The inclusion, the diversity, right? If we start making things better for everyone, which we're already starting to do, we're making actually proper PPE that fit multiple people, body sizes, things that are no longer a generic thing. They're perfectly good equipment now being made to deal with the different needs, especially in the women's side of things, right? What I would highly suggest is just saying, see something, say something, stand up, right? That's something we use in the trade. Be that one person, right? If you see something you don't like, say it. If someone's being mistreated, say it. If we're not getting all the equal rights and fair parts of it, that is one of the keystones of a union, right? We all fight together for everybody, not one person. And when we change these things, it becomes more inclusive and easier. But that's only one part of the battle. I'm just telling you this, but I never showed you it, right? That's where these outreach programs, that's where these summer camps at a younger age, where they're not ready to join the workforce, but they're opening up their horizons, right? So let's give back. That's part of the reason we joined the CWB Association. Really, what it was? Let's raise as much funds as we can, start adding to these programs that have been stripped for years or have been removed completely, to give them the opportunity to see if they even like it. Because once you get that spark, you can really set a fire under someone.
Any 2 cents? Yeah.
What I can say about that is, as I mentioned at the beginning, I am where I am today because of the association, right? Because I met my hiring managers at that point, and since then, after I started working, maybe 6 months after is when I joined the association as on the executive, right, to give back because it gave me a career, right? So that's one way. The other, I would recommend that you go onto the CWB Foundation website because they're always looking for volunteers for women of steel program, arts and
Those are
sparks.
paid positions.
What's that?
They're paid positions to work women in steel camps.
I never knew that. Okay, I thought it was all volunteer because, right? And they have a lot of those programs. What other programs do they have? A mine order meadow. They even had a mother and daughter welding program at one point, and I think they had it. They had it in a few places in Ontario as well. So I would suggest going on to the foundation website.
Yeah, so I mean, what I've seen, at least at our companies and other companies as well, we have internships and co-op opportunities, right? So it's sort of, dovetailing on the volunteering side of things, where again, companies are receptive to having folks come into the industry, either going through school, but those are real opportunities that are happening in almost every single construction company that I've worked for in various positions. So I think you will be pleasantly surprised. Again, there's programs at a provincial level, federal level, for bringing people into the trades. And again, these are incentivized for the company, so they're more than happy to do it. But we have internships and co-op opportunities at the trade level and at the sort of engineering technician, engineering project management levels as well. But there's lots and lots of that going on. So again, if you're interested, it's reaching out to the website, making a phone call, inquiring and being hungry about, hey, is there an opportunity here where I could come, learn a little bit about what does it take to sort of get into the welding, say welding supervisor side of thing, or welding inspection side of thing, or straight up, fitting and cutting at that level. I think those are possible avenues, or actually I shouldn't say possible. Those are real actual avenues that you can go down.
Very much. I just wanted to actually add, I think I've told you this on the podcast before, but the reason that I actually found out about welding was when I was in high school. There was a field trip to the CWB headquarters in Milton, and that was actually like my first little touch of learning about it.
Yeah.
And that was when I went off on a little bit of a different path, and I circled back because of that. So I know how much of an impact that can make.
Yeah.
And how how you're very right. At a young age, it's very important to get people involved. So thank you very much.
And once you start staring at that little blue light, man, it's hard to solve.
Yeah, I kind of just like dip my toe in it, and like 6 years later, I'm still here somewhere. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Good evening, panel. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Bradley Connor. I'm an apprentice with 721 Ironworkers. My question is a little bit more simple. If you're willing to share with us, the panel, any experiences that you've had during your welding time, anything achievement-wise or embarrassing that you would have either done differently or done over again.
Wow, please. I think the achievement list is way shorter than the embarrassment list. I got a quick one. I really love talking about my time working in Ghana. I got to work at a gold mine in Ghana. So that was one of, when you don't know where your paths are going, I worked in potash mines in Saskatchewan. I would have never thought, putting two and two together, that 10 years later, I'd be helping set up a training center for welding at a gold mine in West Ghana. So that was in 2019. That was one of the best experiences I ever had, and also taught me about how important Canadian welding is, because Canadian welders were sought after all over the world. So, having my red seal opened up those doors for me that I'd never even thought were available. So that was a wild, wild trip. And I ate it up, man. It was amazing.
I've been lucky. I've been able to keep employed in Ontario. And if you have an opportunity to travel, go ahead. I've just been lucky enough that I've been staying here. So I haven't had that experience. But some of the most rewarding things I've ever done is just giving back to the community, working with outreach groups, trying to help. And sometimes they're not big victories, they're small victories. Some of the things that inspired me to keep on going is little things, and a lot of them had nothing to do with me, right? I remember coming into this hall and signing up for the first time. And at that time, it was Kevin Bryanton who signed me up. He was the apprentice coordinator at that time. And now he's the general secretary of the International. The Canadian holding an international position in the United States is quite big for us, right? Then, getting to work with someone who taught me after him, which was Clint Knowlton, and working with one of my buddies, one of my mentors, and someone I look up to. It's great working with a team and staff that you're very close with and family-wise. Not every position and workplace is like that. And to me, that was a great goal to achieve. Working around younger minds, people actually care about what I care about, having like-minded interests, and hopefully seeing them excel to higher heights than I could. Because if you can do that, then maybe we did something right here, right? So a lot of the goals that I want to achieve aren't ready yet. Sometimes I look at everything in a 3-year chunk, 5-year chunk. But the one thing I'm going to try not doing is saying no on opportunities, and I'm going to take them. I'm mostly the guy behind the scenes. Well, if I have to be in front of it to push the message or get the result that I want, I guess that's what I'm going to have to do, because that is the bigger, more important thing. So chase your dreams, chase others, chase everything. Don't stop chasing, because if you stop running, it's hard to start again.
Right. Yeah, no, I really like the question, because it's something that I think, again, going back over the years, like, we only want winners, right? We only want to be the best, first place, number one, all the rest of it. And something that's sort of come out, my time when I was in Houston, was about failing, right? And embracing failure, and how do you learn, and failing fast, and and keep going. Like, the whole thing here is about, how do you sort of dust yourself off and then retry again, right? Like, you're not gonna make every weld test. You're not going to lay the perfect bead down. Like, you got to be resilient towards that whole thing, really, no matter what it is. And so we kind of talked about a little bit earlier where, if you've been welding, carbon steel structural, going into aluminum is different, going into nickel is different, going into all positions different, going into different processes is different, right? You're not going to succeed. Like, you're not going to crush it out of the park every single time. But like, that concept of, failing and then failing in front of your peers is like terrifying to people, and they just cannot handle it. Some people they just would rather not even try. And so the piece around this is, again, it's a good line to kind of hold on to, is like, try, fail fast, and then repivot and remove on. Like, that's the sort of the mantra that needs to be out there. Going to like a really positive story. I've had a billion failures. I mean, I am usually the guy that's willing to facilitate conversation. I'm usually dead wrong. I'm usually corrected 9 times, but we got the result. We got what we were looking for. We got to the end of the conversation. The decision was made. We moved forward. I'm more than happy to be the dumb guy in the room. No problem at all, right? I just want to succeed. I just want to get where we need to go with an answer response. I mentioned Houston. One of the things I'm, incredibly proud of. I went down there to work with, a ton of Americans. I built all sorts of great relationships, but like build the department, right? And this is a multinational company. We got jobs in, Australia. We got jobs in Kazakhstan. We got a bunch of jobs in, all throughout the United States. And it's like, build the team, and then build all the procedures, and then build all the equipment, make all the contacts, deal with all the fabricators, all the engineering standards, fabrication standards, material specs, qualify all the procedures. And so we, over the course of 6 years, we built a, just badass team. We had technicians in the field, equipment operators, built a wellhead warehouse, R&D. Like I look back at that time as like extremely just beaming with, hey, lots of failures, sure, but we had, a great time doing it. And we were really successful getting, that business line up and running and thriving. So, again, I've had lots of failures, but the point of failing, embracing failure is sort of a growth thing about, moving forward and never looking back. Just like a quarterback throwing an interception, just didn't happen. Keep going, right?
They call it failing up.
Failing up.
You never fell down.
Never fell up. Well, no, it's true. It's just it's a really important thing. And I think it holds people back. And I think it gets in the way of their progress and not trying stuff and sort of just ignore that garbage and just keep going, Rick?
Well, I like to tell a story, and I apologize if this one is a little bit long, but, some people look at success as, going up within a company or your salary or whatever. But something happened to me this year that cemented how I feel that I want to be my legacy type of thing as a mentor. When I was the chairman of the association for all across Canada, we had a meeting up in Montreal. I don't know, Max, if you were in that meeting. And it was my last year, so we had to nominate a new vice chair and a new chairman. So when the time came, usually the vice chair becomes the chairman, and then we have to nominate a vice chair. So at that point, the vice chair is going to take over the chair position, and then they go, okay, who wants to go for vice chair? And usually when it's like a volunteer thing, it's crickets. It's quiet in the room. So one of the things we did talk about is trying to get the youth into the welding industry. So I go, there was a young engineer in the room. He was a PhD candidate from the University of Alberta. And I've seen him at many meetings, and he's done a lot of presentations. And I knew he would represent the association very well, and I knew it was going to help his career. So I said, I'd like to nominate Gentry Wood. And, he was like, what? He goes, well, what's involved? And I was like, vice chair. I go, you do nothing. So I go, don't worry. When you become chairman, that's when you have to do a lot of work and all that. And I explained everything that needed to be done. So he goes, okay, I take it in. And of course, everyone puts up their hands and says, yeah, we all voted him in. Well, this past year was his last year as chairman. And one of the things as a chairman, you have to write an article in the journal. And one of the comments he made in the journal was he was thanking everybody. He thanked Max and Dan Tadek and all that. And then he thanked me. He said, Victor haphazardly nominated me for this position, but I could not believe how he doesn't realize how much that changed my career. And he thanked me for that. And I was just like, I was stunned when I read that. And I think that's one of the greatest things that I could get. It really cemented that, I'm on the right path when I read that.
Yeah, and Gentry is really good song, Dave. That's good.
I like
that's
that.
good.
Yeah.
All right. So we are out of time. I think we've gone over already. I'm sorry. We're not going to have any more time for questions. I'm getting the big X here from the boss. But we do have to give out some prizes. All right. So do we have prizes chosen already? Grab a card on the way out. This is all the awesome affinity programs that we offer. If you don't know, our free membership gives you discounts at Choice Hotels, Enterprise Rentals, Cooperators Insurance, Mark's Work Warehouse, Canada Welding Supply, and Joseph Gas is coming on, I think, pretty soon here. So we got lots of stuff coming for you guys from the association. But to the prizes. All right. For the Princess Auto Bar Stools, we have 2 winners. The first winner is, drum roll. There we go. Daniel Elia. Who's Daniel Elia? So I think that's one of these. Yep. When we're done the meeting, come grab one of the Princess Auto ones. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I'm on a Lincoln one. I'm safe right now. Now, the second prize, or the second chair from Princess Auto, goes to Nicholas Veroniak.
That's actually pretty good pronouncing.
All right. All right, now we get to the Lincoln Bar Stools. I don't see my name on any of these. Okay.
Is the name on any of them? No.
No.
Oh, okay.
Lincoln Electric Bar Stool first prize goes to Chris Goodwin. All right, the Lincoln Stool. The other Lincoln Electric Bar Stool goes to Hayden Sharp. And the number 1 prize, beautiful custom-made CWB Outlaw leather helmet that is given to us from CWS, goes to, valued at over $1 million. On just this helmet goes to Sean Brooks. Sean Brooks. All right. Well, come up and get it. You can get it right now. Awesome. Congratulations. All right. So thank you, everyone. Make sure everyone signs up to be a member of the association. We still have pens and some bags and swag you guys can grab on the way out. If you haven't grabbed one, there's more events coming up in the Toronto area. Also, we have 5 chapters in Southern Ontario. So between Conestoga, Hamilton, Waterloo, Kitchener, and Toronto. There's lots of stuff. Oh, and Ottawa, if you want to go up to OG, Ottawa, Gatineau. There's lots of events happening. Stuff like this happening all the time. Fun, and it's usually cheap or free. All right? So stay involved, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, guys.